Okay, the recording has started. We're then good to go.
Yeah. Thank you. So I hope everybody can hear me. Good evening, first of all. So before I begin, I wanted to ask because nobody asked. Do you have any doubts from the topics we did last time? I will show you the topic as well if you don't remember. So we talked about and or in Python. Not very important for this bootcamp, but then we started talking about some basic data structure. We talked about string in episode one. Then we did list, dictionary, tuples, and conditional statements, looping statements. Yes, Vicky, you have raised your hand.
Can you explain about functions?
Functions, like what specifically is your doubt?
Like basic syntax and like what are the arguments and other
Okay, I
things?
think I covered that in the last class. I was expecting a better doubt, but yeah. So for writing a function, you just need to write def and then write the function name. Then you put a parenthesis and the parameters. That's all. That is a syntax, but I feel like these kind of things so you can cover. I was expecting something slightly more detailed out, but it's fine. Then after that, we yes,
Okay.
yes, Ayush.
Sir, I had one problem regarding assignment.
Okay, which question?
Uh, yes, sir. In the first question, I was having very difficulty in eliminating all those punctuation marks and spaces from the sentence given in input. So, is there any built-in function in Python which can help me to remove, or I have to do it manually every time when
Right. So
I
if
face
I
similar
read
type
the
of
question
problems?
correctly, so it talked about alphanumeric things, right? So what do you mean by alphanumeric? It means either alphabet or digits. Or I think you're allowed to have spaces and some specific punctuation. I think underscore. I might be very wrong, right? So a few things are there. So just take care of that. So you can just there are some methods in Python which can help you do it in a single line, but I would expect you to do it in using a for loop. Like you just check each character. If each character is either alphabet, either a number, or something else which is allowed, then add that to a new string. So you just truncate the things which are not necessary and make a new string and give this string and check for this string is it palindrome or not using the idea of palindrome that last two elements should be same plus the whatever is left is also a palindrome. That is the logic, right? That's all. But if you want a single line statement which can help you do that, I might share it in collab. That would be fine, I guess.
Yes, sir. You could do it in
Okay, sir.
collab.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
No
sir. Thank
issues.
you,
No
sir.
issues. After that, we talked about debugging and exception handling. I always mispronounce it as exceptional. It's exception handling. So we talked about like if we get some errors, so how do we tackle that, right? So if we suspect that some error can happen within this portion, I put that in the try block and I accept. This accept means it will map to an error. So if this error happens, I will do this. If none of the errors matches, I put a finally block. It's not compulsory to put a finally block like a else block in conditional statement. That's all. After that, I talked about recursion. This was an extra topic, not very important right now. Yes. And yeah, I skipped module. So module is just a set of functions which you can store somewhere in your local system and you can access. Like math module is there. And there are multiple modules, NumPy, Pandas. Those are libraries specifically. We can call them libraries modules synonymously, but there are some differences, but that's fine. Right. So this is all we did in the last class. Yes, Madhav.
I had a doubt on the try and accept thing. So, like, if we just put try, it will cover all the exceptions, right? Like all the possible
Okay.
errors,
No.
or is it?
Actually, if you get an error through the try block, it needs to match one of the except block. If none of them matches, then there is finally. So you can't remove except. Except will help you map to. It's like a switch case. If you people know switch cases, so it's like switch case. So you need to have one of some cases. So except is those cases.
Yeah. So I was saying, so except like, say, yeah, division zero error, right? Except division zero, or like, but if we put just except as it is, it covers all
I'm
possible
I'm not
errors,
sure. I
right?
think finally is the
All.
block. In Rust that is the case. I'm not sure Python. Sorry for that. Yes.
Oh, okay, sure.
But yeah, it's safe to use just finally. Finally means if none of those matches, then it's fine. Right. So let me begin with episode 3. And if you have like any other related logistic details, logistical doubts, that please ask the operational team. You can text it on WhatsApp, right? Yeah. So the today's title is just oops. So before even I start oops, I want to talk about programming paradigm. So I was making few mistakes last time, in the sense like because we have like less amount of time, so it's better that I write the code beforehand instead of typing it here. Otherwise, time is anyways very less. So that's what I've did today. So I will explain the concept. After that, I have written some code. So here and there I will edit during the class so that we can save time, right? So let me start programming paradigm. So anybody knows what's the meaning of paradigm? I will write the spelling. Paradigm. So I will tell a very colloquial meaning. Colloquial in not colloquial, like a layman meaning. Paradigm means a way to conceptualize. Conceptualize. Spelling could be wrong. Sorry for that. Conceptualize, right? So programming paradigm is like how would you structure the thing? How would you structure the code? Structure the code in that programming language. Structure the code, right? So there are like various ideas. One of them is oops. Oops is like a very small subset of different kind of programming paradigm, right? So I will just write few of the programming paradigm, and we will just focus on oops for today. I mean, for Python, it's oops. That's why we want to focus that. So programming paradigm can be classified into imperative. Oh, by the way, if anybody is interested to know more about this, you can check Wikipedia. Like the things I'm writing on this notes is from Wikipedia, but in a more simplified way. Then there is declarative, and one is concurrent. And there are multiple other kind of programming paradigm, but like they are very different and slightly more complex than these kind of things, which are more used. These are also much more popular. So one imperative is one of the type of imperative is procedural, and one is oops, object-oriented programming. Right? In even object-oriented programming, there are two types. One is class, and one is prototype. So these I'm just throwing some jargon, some words in front of you. Don't need to bother about it that much. I'm just telling like what is the overview. Like if you're eager, if you want to see what is happening. So oops is like a very small ant on the ground. It's a very small thing. So in Python, what path we follow is sorry. Yes. So what is the path we follow? We go from programming paradigm to imperative, then to where? Anybody can tell me?
Oops.
Just to
Oops.
after that. Correct.
Class.
Right. So I should have drawn the arrows instead of these bullets. Right. That's all. So in declarative, I was talking about Haskell. If you guys remember, Haskell is a functional programming language. So everything is like declared. So you know what will the output be. So I'm telling in a very vague sense. But in programming language like imperative, the output might not be can't be said deterministically. That's the overview. So one is Haskell is a functional programming language. Yeah, I think that's all. Otherwise, it will just get complicated. Functional and many more. So imperative, declarative means you just define everything. You know what was going to happen. Imperative is just define some steps. So if this happens, you do this, this, and this. That is imperative in some sense, right? That's yeah. So you just define some kind of control over the execution flow. Yeah, that's all for the introduction of programming paradigm. Let me come back to the actual oops. What is oops? So oops is just you organize your design, the design of the program, whatever you're going to do, whatever variables you're going to have around objects instead of function. Right? So function is on a lower hierarchy than objects. In the sense, like if you have to, in order to use the functions or in order to use some variable, you need access to an object. till now the codes we have seen, you might have not seen that, but actually there is a internal bigger class, the main class which handles everything, which is handling all this, and we are creating objects, and through which we are accessing function and using variables, right? Yeah, so that is the thing, and each object has some data, which are also known as attributes and behavior, methods, behavior, and function, whatever you want to call. What would I say? Behavior, right? So we are going to talk about like how to can we make objects and class in Python. But before that, I will just mention some of the key benefits. So can you tell me any benefit of using OOPS? Like it should be very direct. Like it's some kind of structure I've given which helps you to reuse something, right?
Yes.
It's so one is reusability, which I told reusability. Right, and one more thing, because of the structure of the code, like because I've broken down into objects and different functions and all, I also get the scalability property in the sense it's easier to modify and extend the things because everything is broken down. If I'm finding like while using this function, I'm making some kind of error, the output is some kind of identified output, then I can edit that. So this is scalability. I can increase the scale, right? And it's better structure. So structuring is known as modularity. Modularity. Yes, this should be the spelling. Yes. And like what? Yes.
Um, is security is also the key
No,
benefit of OOPS?
security is not in the sense like it highly depends on the language you're using. Like in Java, the security is much better than what is in Python. It's highly dependent on the kind of programming language you use. But yeah, for now you can say it's safe, but it depends. It slightly depends on the language you're using. That's all. Yes, Madhav.
What exactly do you mean by security, like safety?
Safety in the sense if you're in a if you have a bank account, right? So if your bank is using some kind of class and object through Python, suppose, so it wants to protect that if there are some variables, your name, your account number, and everything, there should be some kind of protection that it does not show your name or account number or your balance to someone else, right? So there is some kind of restriction, but it does not allow you to access others' data. That is one of the things. That is safety in the sense, which I know.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
Yes. Yes. Welcome, Shivli. Yes.
So what is scalability exactly? I didn't
Yes, so
understand
if you
this.
know about scaling of vectors, scaling of numbers, it means just you want to increase or expand the code, right? You want to increase the functionality, that's all. Yes.
Okay. So increasing the
Yes,
functionality of that.
functionality, or if you want to modify or make some changes, that is much simpler than other kind of programming paradigms.
And modularity?
Yes. So modularity means the structure, like what is the structure around it, like the lattice structure. So modularity is used in a lot of lattice points and lattice structure. So modularity means just how does the code look? So it's like broken down into different pieces, right? So you can see, okay, this is for this is for that. That's all. It's just like a city, state, district, and so if there is a state, first there is a country, then there is state, there are cities, sorry, district, then there are cities, then there are few
Yes,
villages.
right. I got it.
Yes, I'm just explaining that. So now there's some kind of key principles in loop. So I'm just writing these words without explaining for now because I will come back to them at the end. And polymorphism. So I will see how much time we are left at the end, we are left with, and I will cover these. Right, so that is like the overall structure of OOPS in general, without like use of Python or Java. So how do we use class and objects in Python? That is the thing, right? So let me come back to Collab and show you. Oh, even before that, I can write some few lines about class and objects, then I can come back to code. So classes just give the blueprint. It's a very generic term we use for classes. It's blueprint for objects. And this blueprint can be copied, modified, and be changed accordingly what kind of objects you want, right? So as I told, object is has data and attributes. So it can take data and attributes from the class, but and apart from that, it can have its own data and attributes also. So object is just an instance of a class. Right. So let me come back to Collab now. Can you guys see my Collab screen now?
No.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, yes.
It's coming up soon.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Right. So I will just make a blueprint. So how do we define classes in Python? I just write class. So for definition of function, I write def. To make a class, I write class. And remember, to name a class, the name of that variable should start with a capital alphabet. It's uppercase English alphabet, right? And then suppose I am defining some variable like color of the car is suppose red, brand is suppose Toyota, right? So these are like class variables, right? So these are variables associated to this class. I have not created any objects right now. So that's, I'm just showing you some kind of syntax in Python. And now I define some functions of the class, not the object. Show detail. We will talk about this word self inside the bracket also soon. For now, just take it as a black box. Then let me just print. Yes, so it's okay. Right?
Can you please explain that syntax?
What specifically you are confused in this syntax?
Yes, because it's my first time that I'm learning.
Right. So as I told you, as like when we define function, we have df, right? So I'm just using a class as that how to define a function. So the class is a keyword. I'm using class to define a class. After that, I have defined some variables, which I've already seen how we do. And I have also defined a function, which I've already done in the last class. So that's all. Right? And in how to.
And what is self here?
Yes, self, as I told you, I will come back to it later. So just take it as a black box.
Okay.
Yes. Right. So how to make an object of this class? This is the way. So what the name of the class is like the normal variable name. So I just equate it to this expression which says car in parenthesis. Right. So car parenthesis where car is a class will create an instance of this class. Right. So it's just an instance which I'm calling by my car. So my car is an object. Let me write it. So my car is an object of the class car. This is just a syntax. There is no logic or something around it right now. It's just the syntax of Python. Right. So suppose, as I told, object will carry all the attributes and all the all the attributes and all the methods of the class itself. So I can use the methods. So let me try using my car show detail. Right. So this is the function of the class of the class car, which my car as the object of the class car has taken, right? So it will just, yes, it will just run that and will print red Toyota. But the difference here is, as I told, objects can, even though they carry on the things, the data and attributes of the class, it can still make its own stuff, right? So we will see that how. So is this clear? Just the syntactically, is it clear? What is like, how do we define class and object? Yes, Madhav.
Sir, is a class car, right? You used a capital letter. Is that like a convention or is that
No,
always
that is a
required?
convention. Yes.
That's a convention.
As far as then it's a convention. Yes, Shivli.
So you've defined it as class car only, but then we've written my underscore car. So
Oh yeah, okay.
like
My
that is
underscore car is
required
an object
to.
of the class car.
So we have to define an
Yes.
object separately. Okay, just directly if we didn't write that object,
Yes,
then
correct.
we couldn't have done this.
Yes, sir. Each object will copy whatever the data and the methods the original class had, which is whose object is it, right? So somewhat is that. So through object only you can access data and its method. Right? So now I will come to the next topic, which is creating a class without a constructor. Right? Or maybe we can just start with creating a class with constructor, because not to know something is because you guys don't know what's a constructor right now. I will assume that, so it's better that I will start with a constructor. So, right. So this constructor will help you to create a class which can have its own property somehow, right? So this constructor is defined using the function underscore underscore init. So let me write it here. Class is the blueprint and object is its implementation. Not, yeah, okay, sure, you can say that, yes. But if you go like too technical, the words might be slightly misleading, but yeah, for overview, it's correct. Yes. So I use the class underscore underscore init, then underscore underscore. This is the function which helps you to construct an object which can make its own property. So as you can see, 1 second. So I made a class named car, again the same name with capital C. Yes, Rashmi.
Hello. Yes, we are creating a class, and after then we are calling a function, like define a function, and after then we are calling this much function. I study OOP with Java. So basically Java create an object.
Yes, so here also in the previous example, my car was the object which I created, right? It's somewhat like.
Yes. So you are not calling
Yes,
a function,
I'm creating
you are
an
create
object.
an object.
But in Python, it's much more easier. I can just create an object by just equating it to one of the instances of the class, which is car.
But why we are using a Python like a OOP?
I mean, it's a Python bootcamp, if I'm not wrong. That's why. That's the only reason. Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing is, Python has some other functionality also. And first of all, it's easy to start. That's the main reason we are doing it through Python. Yeah. Right. So the function which helps you to construct an object which can have its own properties underscore underscore init. Okay, I've repeated it a lot of times. Sorry. Yeah. So def init. Then I write self. So I will come back to self later on, but for now I will just give you an overview idea. What do you mean by self? So self. What do you mean by self? Self means myself somehow, right? So self will hold the identity of the object I'm currently working on. So if I call, so I have already written the code. So car 1 is equal to capital C wala car with some parameter, right? So when I call this word self here, I hope you can see there is no lag. So this self which I have highlighted will carry the essence of the object car 1 whenever I call this, right? So that is the idea, overview of the idea, right? So self.brand, it will help me to create a instance variable or the object variable brand associated to this self. So if I was running car 1 is equal to something, then this self will correspond to car 1, right? So I will ask a one simple question just to get to know if you guys understood. If I'm running car 2 is equal to car with some parameters, so this line, right? So if I'm going to the constructor function, what will self denote?
Car 2.
Car 2, right? So I hope you guys get it. So whenever I call an object using its function or something, or to define or construct it, the self in all the functions, I have self in the front, which helps you to specify, okay, I was talking about this object.
Again? I didn't understand that self, how self is denoting car 2.
Yeah, so if I'm running car 2 is equal to capital C wala car with some parameters, right? So it will go to this constructor, right? So it will go to this constructor, and this first parameter which I've named self, you can name it with anything, but as a convention, I'm writing as self. People write it as self, not as a convention, just it has been assumed, okay, self, right? So self is there, the self will correspond to the object car 2, this one. And if I was running car 1, it will correspond, the self will correspond to car 1, that's all, right?
So we are running both now, car 1 dot display info and car 2 dot display
Yeah, so whenever I'm running whatever, that will correspond to that. That's all. If you're running a for loop, if you have a is equal to something inside that, so when you go to the next iteration, you have a new copy of it. It's something like that.
Okay.
Yes, Shivanshu, raise your hand.
Can we use different name about not
Yes.
using self?
Yes, you can use, but just you need to ensure self or whatever name you're going to use is the first parameter.
So first parameter is always reserved.
Yes, yes.
You mean
Because
to say?
if the name was reserved in some sense, if self was reserved, I could have kept self in any position, right? But because as I told you, you can put any name. So Python will get confused, right? Which variable you want to call your object as, right? So that's why you can use any name. You just need to keep the name in the front, like it's the first parameter,
Okay.
right? Okay. Somebody else also raised the hand. I missed it. If yes, you can talk.
So we are creating two
Okay.
objects of car1 and car2 here.
Right.
I'm
Yes. Yes.
asking, are we okay? So self means uh, self is just there to denote the brand, model, and car of or an year of car1, and then again to denote the brand, model, car of year of car2.
No, okay, you're
Is it like
slightly
that?
correct, but slightly, maybe I missed a point. In the sense, self is holding the identity of that object. In the sense, if I'm calling you Shivli, if I call someone Shivli, like among you, so you will know, right? Okay, I'm calling you, even though naming is an abstract thing, right? So here also, self is just holding the identity of the object car1. If I'm running car1 thing, if I'm running car2 thing, it will hold the identity of car2. So whenever I'm calling self dot something, it will correspond to that object. That's all. Right?
So it's just the name of
Yes, it's just like
the
renaming. So you might
object.
have some nickname in your home, nickname or pet name, whatever you call that. So it's somewhat like that. So currently, in order to avoid confusion, we will see, not maybe in today's, not in today's, let's say in future, that sometimes if you want to access a lot of objects in the same function, so in order to hold the essence of the function, the object which called that function, I have to use self. So self will just hold the identity of the object which called it, right? It somewhat is like that. Self will hold the identity of the
So
object which called it.
come again? I didn't.
Uh-huh.
Can you come again? I
Yes.
didn't
Okay.
understand.
Let's just wait. So let me just finish the constructor. When I come back to function, I will tell this again. This, I think we can give enough time to sell. It's an important concept, right? So yes. So
Okay.
just forget car2 for now, right? Just see car1. So I'm calling car1 is equal to car with some 3 parameters. So what will it do? It will go to this constructor and self is there. This self will correspond to car1. So car1 dot brand is, it will just take these values as you can see on the screen, and these becomes the instance variable or the object variable. Shivli, I think you are unmuted. Can you mute yourself? Yes, thank you. Right. So car1 object will have 3 instance variable, object variable, what you want to call like. Yes, Mrinal is asking, yes, you can create as many objects as you want through constructor, finite number obviously. Right. So this cell will denote the car1. So for car1, brand is equal to brand, something like that. And then I define a function display info, print something. I don't care what it is printing for now, but yeah, it will display info about the car, right? So here also I've written self. So whichever object, I am confusing you, sorry for that. So whichever object is calling this function, this self will hold that identity, right? So here, let me just comment this car2, otherwise it will create more confusion. As you can see here, car1 dot display info. But in the definition of display info, as you can see here, the self is already written. So what does that self denote? It just denotes the identity of car1. Is it somewhat slightly more clear in the sense?
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
That's the purpose.
Yeah.
So whichever object is calling that something, it just self just correspond to that. That's all.
Okay, so we are actually calling the display info function using car1 object, and then that is then again relating to the first one.
Yes, correct. So whenever
init
constructing,
car1.
self will correspond to the object which I'm creating. When I'm calling the function with the self as the parameter,
And then self will kind of store all this brand,
yes,
model, and year of the thing, and it will correspond
yes,
to car1.
correct.
Okay, fine. I understood. Thank you.
So what is the use of
Yes,
constructor?
as I told you in the previous example, I think I told it twice or thrice, but it's fine. So in the sense, like when I'm creating an object without the constructor, the object will just copy paste the data and the methods of the original class. It won't have its own identity, even though it will take everything from the class. But in this, when I have a constructor, it gives me more freedom in the sense, apart from whatever class has, I can also have my own identity. So in the sense, as you can see, self.brand model this here, you can change, it can have different for different objects, right? It need not be same. That's all. So constructor help you to have a make objects with their own identity. That's all. Right, so let me just run it. So as you can see, so when car1 is created, all these are saved in some variable. After that, when I run car1.displayInfo, it will print whatever the associated brand and model and year name for that object was. After that, when I run car2.displayInfo, now this self will correspond to car2 when I run car2.displayInfo. So for whatever the corresponding brand, model, and year was for car2, it will just print that, right? Does it make slightly more sense now? So whichever object is calling that function, self will just correspond to that. Is it clear?
Yes,
Yes?
sir.
Yeah. They've already made a like a separate block for self, even though I explained it now. So I think it should be much better. So if I'm calling dog1 dot bark, so bark is a function of the class dog, and dog1 is a is an object of the class dog. Right. So if I call dog1 dot bark, what will this self denote here when it will start running? Anybody?
Constructor.
Dog one.
Dog one.
Yes,
Dog one.
it will correspond to the object dog1. As I've repeated, at least I have repeated it at least like 6-7 times. So the self will just denote the object which has called that function. That's all for now, right? So as you can see, I've created a function, a object of the class dog with these two parameters. Right. So when I construct this, this self will denote the object dog1 which I'm creating, and it will save name and greet in some variable, instance variable. It's known as instance or object variable, which I define in the constructor thing, right? And it will be saved as that. And when I put dog1 dot bark, it will print the name of the dog and just says woof. So it's just not necessary what it's printing, but it just shows the functionality of the word self. So you can use any word instead of self. Okay, like that's fine. So I've just discussed about what are oops in general, like without the Python or Java-ness, and then I talked about how can we construct classes and objects. So we were just discussing about self parameter. This is something known as the like it's similar looking to init, right? In general, when we write a function, we just write a using a variable syntax, right? We never put like underscore on the both of the side of the name of things with the alphabet, right? So this str method is somewhat unique, like init, the constructor. So we will see how. So let me first comment this up. Just give me a second. I will bring some water. Right. So here I have created the class book with a constructor.
What is the difference between init and str?
Sorry, Chip, but I think I was about to start with that. But yeah, so I'm just explaining that. Before that, in order to explain str, I need to explain something else. So just wait. So yes, I created the class book with this constructor, self, title, and author. Right. So it will create some instance variable name, title, and author, and will save it. Right. So if book1 is an object of this, so it's very intuitive to print something, right? So if I made a data structure list by list dictionary tuple, it's one obvious thing is you will just print that. So here I've created the list, object book1 of the class book. So if I print that object, what will come in the screen? Let's see. Okay, there is some issue with this. Just give me a second. See, when I run, okay, there was some issue earlier. So when I try to print an object, right? So it shows me something like this, which looks slightly disgusting, right? Even if you're a very software engineering kind of person, you can like decipher it. But in general, it's not very useful for any user, right? Okay, what is it even telling? It's telling me some kind of code about that object. So in order to modify this, there's something known as str function underscore str. So let me paste that code. I think I lost it. Just give me a second. right? So this str will help you to customize what you want to show when you print that object, right? So like list, tuple, or string, if you want to print an object, you want to make it look, when you whatever you get on the screen should look somewhat nice, right? Not something like this main underscore underscore something. So in order to do that, str helps you to modify, customize what you want to see on the screen. So I can just print this as well. Now if you see, for the object book 1, it has printed something like 1984 by George Orwell, right? So this is just trivia. It's not very important for this bootcamp, but I was just telling. So STR helps you to customize what you want to show when you print that object. That's all. Right? I also talked about class and instance variable already, right? So class variables are something which is there for all the objects of that class. So it's like a global kind of something, right? It's global. And instance, because object is an instance of a class, it's somewhat related to that. So these are variables or constant related to that object. So here, as you can see, school is equal to CMI. So school is not associated to a word self, like not it's not associated to a word like self, which I was using earlier, right? So in some way, this school is for all the objects for all the objects which I create for the class student, right? So this is a class variable, and these are instance variables. Instance means object, right? So now let me just go over the code one. So this is the constructor which will help me to create objects with their own identity apart from deriving the things from the class. What it can derive from the class is this variable. That's all. Then I create two objects, S1 and S2, with their respective name and age. And then I try to print the class variable for each of the objects. So what do you think it will show me? CMI, right? That's all. Because school for both the objects are same. These are the class variables. So it won't have any different effect. Right? Suppose I change this class variable to IITM. This will change the value of school for all the objects, right? Because school was a class variable, correct? So class variable is for everyone. Instance variable is for that specific object. So that's all. Let me not over explain things, right? So as you can see, it will change. Yes. So you, as Leif asked me, like, how can we use this? So if there is some general stuff which you want to have for everyone, so then we use class variable. If you want to have something specific, like name or age, here name and age are very specific, right? Even though they have the same school, but the name and age are very specific to that person. So it's like an identity of that person. That's why it's separated out. So this also saves space. So you don't need to write self.school. Otherwise, it will create as many instances of self.school as the number of objects, right? Which you don't want. So this saves space as well, right? So I will take up some doubts for 5 minutes. Then I will come to the key principles of OOPS. Any other doubt?
So S2 dot school will also give IITM.
Yes, your guess is correct. That will also give me IITM. Let me do that. The school is a class variable, right? That's why. See. Any other doubt? Objects without constructor. So as I told, okay, let me just trace back slightly. Yes. Oh, thank you for reminding. Even though I already did objects without constructor, as you can see, the first example which I did was this, right? So here, can you see any underscore underscore in it? Those kind of functions, no, right? So I created a function, sorry, an object of the class car without a constructor. So it will take up everything whatever that class had, but it won't have its own identity. It can't make anything else. Let's see here also, as you can see. Let me not run it first. Let me just explain. So you have a class named as dog, which has a class variable species, right? And you have made a common function named bark, right? This is also a class function, but you can according to the function, you can slightly modify it. Right? So you have made two objects, dog1 and dog2. Right? So it will take up the species canine. And then if you try printing the species is a class variable, as we did for that school thing also. It just gives me that. And I have the function bark, which will run this function. That's all. You're not creating a constructor, you're not giving its own identity apart from the class thing. Is it clear? It's not very interesting. Like creating class without a constructor is not used that much, but just for the sake of completion, I'm taking it up. Yes, that's all. Yes, you can say somewhat like global variable. So whenever you write a for loop or if loop, so not if loop, if conditional or a for loop for now. So whatever variables which are outside that for block are kind of global variable for things which are inside that for loop or for body. It's somewhat like that, right? Any other doubt?
Yes.
Yes, Shivansh.
Yeah, I have a doubt regarding where school one question where you put student dot school. So after students was school equal to IITM, below these all the values where I print s1 dot school or all the instances there will be
Yes,
IITM
correct.
value,
So
no
as you can see,
CMI.
this student has the capital S, right? So this refers to the class. So it will change the class variable.
Okay. So if I only want to change, suppose only S1 value,
Only
not
S1,
whole
but
class.
see, the school variable is for the whole class, right? So school is not a local variable in the sense it's not an instance variable. That is the issue. So you can't just change it for a specific instance. You have to define it somewhere here again to change it for a specific instance, right?
Okay.
Yes. Somebody asked some doubts in the chat. Let me just see that and then start with principle. Yeah, if it's Aradhya asked if we skip the bark function, it will only print the species. Yes, that's all. Because I was specifically printing that class instance. That's the reason. Yeah. So let me start with the actual oops concept. Just give me a second. Yes. So I will just do for 5-10 minutes. I will finish some theory of this and then come back to the code. So codes are very simple. Simple. I'm not taking very complex stuff. So we would be done within extra 10 more minutes with the code. Yes. Can you see my note screen where I'm sharing the note? Right? Key principles of object-oriented paradigm. So first is inheritance. It's very similar to the word inheritance in English, in the sense when we use in general sense, we talk like we inherit properties, we inherit some genes from our parents, right? So it's somewhat like that. So if they're like apart from like humans, we have classes in Python, right? So class can inherit another class in some sense. Like it can't inherit everything, but some like data or some method it can inherit. So we're not going to complicate it that much. So if there's some set of classes, this is some class one, class 2 or class 3. So suppose class 1 is like a grandparent, right? So class 2 will inherit class 1, and similarly class 3 can inherit class 2. And for this block, let me just talk about this block. For given inheritance, in the sense you have only two people right now. So C2 becomes a parent class and C3 becomes a child class. This is also known as super class or a subclass. So these are just terminologies, nothing related to actual syntax. Right? So what does it help? So it helps you to reuse the code. If C3 is inheriting C2, the class C2, it will help you use the code from C2 in C3. Right? So that is the purpose. So I'm just write. Let me not use this bullet. Helps you to write code. We will see a code where we're going to use this as well. So there are multiple types of inheritance. We're not going to cover that today. So the most popular are single, like this, or multiple. You can inherit multiple classes, and there is something known as multi-level, and there are many more kind of inheritance. Okay, that's a much more technical question. So for now, we will say, so Aradhya asked, like, C2 needs to be public, right? For C3 to, sorry, C2 needs to be public for C3 to inherit that, right? So for now, we will just talk about in the sense, like C3 has the access to C2. That's all. I'm not talking about the word public. So C3 can access C2. That's all. Right. So these are some types of inheritance. That is the idea of inheritance. Similarly, we have polymorphism. So anybody knows what's the meaning of morphism?
Is it like the English word
Yes,
morph
you are right.
to
So
change
exactly
something?
that. Yes, can change form. Somebody wrote, yes, it's somewhat like poly means many, right? So it means many. Morphism means form or type. So as I told you in the beginning, like in the previous topic, in the sense, like if I'm using a constructor, it helps your object to have its own identity, right? Apart from the data, it can also have its own function. It can modify that function. So through inheritance also, if you can see, if class 2 is being inherited by class 3, so class 3 is the subclass, even though it can use the function from class 2, it can also edit it in some way to use it accordingly, right? So in that way, it's polymorphism. So if you have the same thing, so let me just write it also. This property allows you to, okay, so 1 second, allows function method to have different meanings based on context. Right. So if I want to use the function related to class 2 and class 3, I can use a slightly different form, even though most of the portion of that class would be the same. So it would have a similar functionality, but with slight difference. So I think whatever words I'm telling, it's like it might go over your head because I'm not giving you an example. So when we come back to code, I will reiterate these points. Right. So this is also known as overriding or overloading. So the same code can work in different ways, right? So that is polymorphism. It can have take different forms. Third is encapsulation. This is somewhat related to safety, if you see. So it encapsulates something, right? So encapsulation means prevents. So somebody in the beginning talked about safety. So encapsulation helps you to take care of that, but it differs from language to language. It prevents direct access to data. So because of this, Aradhya was telling me about the word public, right? So in that sense, if a class is private or an object, or sorry, not an object, the function is private, I can't use that function until I have access to it. If it's not public, I can't use it. So those kind of things are known as either protected or private. So protected needs like more explanation, which I'm not going to do right now. So you can just understand public, private. So private, in order to access some private class or private function, you need to have some kind of ways to access that. So we will see that those kind of ways which Python allows me to access private things, and these are usually denoted by underscore in the beginning, right? So it has underscore in the beginning. It's different from init and str, by the way. Those have underscore at the end also, right? And last is abstraction. So anybody knows what is abstraction, like in general sense, not like, ooh. Sure, hiding details is a very nice word. Anything else?
A short summary, kind
Yes,
of.
summary.
hiding the essential details from a task and showing the just only the user only the hiding the essential details and showing
Yes,
the simple interface to the
yes,
user
correct. So instead of
or their
actually
users.
implementing everything or actually showing everything, we just get some idea. Okay, I can do that. So when we talk about functions in maths also, right? So as you can see, I generated like f goes from something to something. So this gives you a structure on that, right? So you still might ask question, what is f? What is this colon? What is that? What is this n? So still it is given a structure like I will write the function like this, and it will have some kind of meaning. Yes, it hides complex implementation. It hides complex detail. Even this notation hides complex details in the sense, R, if you want to denote using set notation, you can't write all the numbers, even natural numbers. So these kind of things. So abstraction word itself came from math in the sense, right? It hides the details, but it gives you a summary. And using these details as summary, you can put some more details to make it more useful and usable, and then you can use. So these are like the four key principles in oops. So let me come back to coding in Python. I hope you can see my collapse screen.
Yes,
Yes.
it is
So
visible.
again, I already made the class dog, right? But a much more general, not a general species, a general set of living beings would be animal, right? So I made a class animal, which has a constructor to create object and a function speak, right? So if object like animals usually can make some kind of sound, so that's why I've written some sound. But right, but dog have like a specific sound, right? So that's why I created a function def speak self return bar. And dog is also a subclass of the class animal, superclass animal, right? So how do I inherit in Python? So in order to inherit in Python, you put the super class or the parent class inside parent, one second, parenthesis after the class name, right? So this syntax just means if I have written dog and then in parenthesis animal, this means dog class inherit the properties of the class animal. That's all. And what kind of properties? Some functions, right? As I told functions. So here it inherits the function speak, but it modifies it slightly, right? As you can see. So this is also some example of polymorphism, right? Even though it has the function speak, it modifies it slightly in order to return bar. Let me just run it as well. Yeah. So I have made a object dog. I think the let me name it dog one so that we are not confused with the class and object. Yes. So this constructor was already there in the superclass animal, right? So I don't need to define it here. I just use that. I abuse that in the sense. So just like dog one. When I construct it using dog buddy, it will go to the constructor of animal, right? And will construct that object. And when we want to print dog one dot name, it will print me buddy, even though it's not defined in the class. Can you see that? It's not defined in the class dog, but it was defined in animal. Because of inheritance, I can use that. Does that make sense? Even though it was not defined in the subclass, I can use this from the superclass, right? And in dog one dot speak, I modified the function speak, and I'm returning back. Yes, you can print overriding it. So suppose I just delete this. I'm not sure about the syntax. Let me see if it runs or not. Okay, there's slight issue. Let me write a different function inside itself. Just give me a second. Def something. Okay. That's all right. So I have also not defined, I have also not modified the function speak. See, as you can see, I have not defined the function speak for dog itself, but it can inherit from the superclass animal, and it will print some sound, right? Yes, that's all. And again, okay, this example will make sense now. So I have a class bird with the function speak and a class parrot, which inherits the class bird, and it has modified that function slightly, as you can see, right? Instead of making the sound chirp, it will make this a sound quack. I don't know how to pronounce it, right? So as you can see, it will keep running the function which was meant for that class, the parrot, not the bird, because I've overridden. This parrot is an object of the class parrot, not the bird, right? That's why it will first see, okay, do I have the copy of that function with in my definition? If yes, it's fine. If not, it will go to its superclass, its parent class, and then run it. So in the previous example, as you can see, because dog did not have any instance of the function speak, right? So it went and check on the function of the class of its parent class, which was animal, and run. Right? So that's the difference. This is known as overriding. Even though it was defined for the class bird, but parrot already defined it customizably and run it. Okay, is this clear? Polymorphism. Same function can have different forms depending on where you have defined it. Right? That's all. Okay, let me just download this as well so that I am facing some network issue in this collab. So even if it's lost, I can copy paste it. Yeah. So now we will do encapsulation. So does anybody remember what I told about encapsulation? If they can tell me in 1-2 lines.
Prevent direct access
Yes.
to data.
Yeah, for safety
Correct.
purpose,
Correct.
privacy.
And one more thing which I told was, in order to make private variables, I put underscore before the variable name, right? So here, as you can see,
Yes, yes.
self underscore balance is this. So suppose I try to access it without this function. So okay, I should have removed this code. I should have not kept it. Yes. So it will run very normally. I don't need to take care of anything. Suppose I already knew there is a variable named balance somewhere. I somehow came to know through some bank manager or someone. There is something, some variable name balance which will help me to access it. So suppose I try printing it. It will give me error because this underscore is a private variable. So in order to access this, even though it's private, I can access this if the person who has made that class allows me to do that, right? So in order to use that, I write a separate function, def get balance, and I just print it. In general, you can print without even having these kind of functions. As you can see, dog name. So this name was already written in the constructor function. I can directly access it, right? Can you see the difference? It was defined without the underscore, and I can directly access it. But in this setting, I can't directly access it. It will give me error. That's why it's not running. That's one of the issues, right? So in order to access it, I need to write a separate function which will return that value. 1 second. Does this make sense? So in order to access that private variable, I need to have a separate function which allows me to access that. Any doubt? Yes. So I would assume that is an yes if there are no doubts, right? So get back. Yes, Vicky.
Can you explain this how we are accessing this deposit and
Sure.
this one
So
from the
just I will
earlier
just
ones?
trace back to a different the previous example where I had already defined self.name as a variable, right? So as you can see, dog1.name can directly access it, right? Right? It will just print me buddy. But in this setting, this instance variable had underscore in front of it. That means it's a private variable. So if I try accessing this thing without the function, it will give me error. It will give me error. That's why it was not running. right? It will give me error. So in order to access this, I create a function get balance which will print it. So if I remove it, there is no way I can access this instance variable. That's the purpose. That's all. Nothing else.
Okay, got it. So we are declaring a separate function to
Yes.
get that private variable.
So people are asking how do functions? So functions internally can access that private variable. That's not an issue. But someone who has created an object of that class, they can't access it directly. So they need a separate function to access that. Right? So now if I try printing it, it will print me 1500, 1000 plus 500, right? That's the crux. There is some much more complexity in this kind of thing. But for now, if you have underscore underscore before a variable name, you can't access it directly. Is it clear? And even if it's not clear, for this bootcamp, we won't be needing encapsulation abstraction in a much more detail. It's fine. If you need more help, you can go over the collab and the notes. I think you would be fine with it, right? But for the future episodes, we won't be needing encapsulation abstraction in much more detail, right? So abstraction, as I told, it just gives you a summary or a template, right? So template is the correct word. It gives you a template to create more classes. Yeah. So in order to show which class is an abstract method or abstract class, I have add the rate abstract method. So this is just syntax. So there's no confusion or anything. This is just syntax you need to remember, right? So I defined a class and I written abstract method, and then I've defined some function. Right. So this just give you a template. So now I'm actually creating a class which is not an abstract class. It's an actual class named car and inherit. Okay, I'm slightly bad at pronouncing inherit. So it inherits the the class vehicle and its functionality, which is this def engine, and it tries to modify it, right? So vehicle has a template which the class car can use and modify to use it. That's all. So if I start running it, my car, okay, what's the issue here? Let me refresh.
हेलो व्हाट्सएप में हेलो हेलो हेलो
Hello, hello. Yeah, I'm asking Vardhan just a second.
ओ
Hello.
Hello, Vardhan. Yeah.
Yes, I'm really sorry. I think there was some issue with my PC, so I think I lost the connection there. But yeah, as I was telling about abstraction, so I have written the code in the collab. I'm really sorry I can't access it right now. So I've just created a template which you can copy paste by inheriting it through a different class and modifying it. That's the purpose of abstraction. Yes, let me just come back to my code as well. Not the code, I mean the notes. I'm really sorry for this last moment. I don't know what happened. Yes, so we talked about inheritance. So how do you inherit? It is just, I hope you guys can see my screen because I can't see chat right now.
Yes, it is visible.
Yes. So how do you inherit? So you just write class. So in order to in so that class 3 can inherit class 2, you just write this syntax, right? That's the purpose. This is the syntax. And polymorphism, you just write redefine that function even though that function was there in the superclass. That's all. And encapsulation abstraction, for now you can just skip, not an issue. Let me just revise what we did. So we talked about how we can create classes and objects in Python through constructor or without constructor and create objects. So when do objects have their own identity? Can anybody tell me in what method?
With constructor.
Yes, so with constructor they have their own identity. Right? So, and we also talked about the parameter self and the constructor init and this str. So it helps you to print the object without some like slightly disgusting lines, right? You can modify what you want to show on the screen when you are printing that object. So here the keyword is you're printing that object, right? Then after that we saw how to inherit and use polymorphism, right? Any doubts?
No, no.
No? Yeah, I think it would be best to revise it once. Yes, I will share the notes. I will share in that drive. You can access that. I will share the collab also. After this class, I will try to modify it by end of the day. Yeah. Anything else? I have added that in the drive, Pranav. Is it not available?
Can you provide the link of the drive in chat?
A drive is there in the group, by the way, that Python Odyssey or the doubt section, doubt corner, sorry,
Please,
there in the
please,
description.
please pin that drive link.
But episode 2 notes are not there.
Oh, they're not there. I think I uploaded. I'm really sorry. I will do that. But the collab link is still there. So I've only maintained a same collab file for all the episodes. Yes, I will do that by today. Any other doubt related to OOPS? I mean, like one class is not enough to do OOPS, but I tried to cover a lot of topic. Yes, someone raised their hand.
Hmm. I
Yeah, hello.
get some of the things in my mind only.
Could you repeat? I couldn't hear you.
I get some of the things in my mind because it was as a beginner it was too fast for me.
Yeah, I can agree on that because there are like too many topics. If you are not aware about classes and objects, so it would be like a very abstract concept in itself. Yeah, so I can understand. So it would be best to revise it again. Only then you will get used to it. Yeah,
Yes, yes, definitely.
yeah. So before the quiz also you will get slightly more time. So next week we won't be having like too many sessions. This week I will have one. Next week also we have two. After that you will like 3-4 days free. So you can go over the things as well. So that the last session you are like in a much more better position to tackle things. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
hello.
Vicky.
Yeah, hello, Vardhan. So, earlier, I was working in banking sector, so I have just
Uh-huh.
changed to this one. So, can you suggest me any resources or anything which is best for a new person who is coming into this line?
Uh, can you specify the line?
Like earlier, I was working in the banking industry.
Okay.
So now I have switched to National Informatics Center in IT. So for learning this Python or any other language, like for this right now Python, do you can suggest any resources which is good for the beginners?
Sure, but in Python specifically, what do you want to learn? Do you want to learn syntax? Do you want to go for data science? Do you want to go for software engineering?
No, no,
So in that
from the
way,
basic one. No, right now I have taken the Python in the second sem. So can
okay,
you
okay.
suggest me which will cover the things like basic things as the things progress? Like from the starting, I want to know.
Sure, sure, sure. Yes. So the drive which is there on the WhatsApp in the description, I will
Yes.
through that drive only. I will update one. I will make a document where I will share the names of the resources, so you can directly
Okay.
access it, right?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, because the issue is if I share it here, it will get lost in the meeting. You can't access it anymore. So I
Yes.
will
Yes.
just keep it permanent.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that will help.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else? Yes. Ashish, you're asking about the link. I don't have it right now, so it would be best to go to that Doubt Corner WhatsApp group. It's there in the description.
Yeah, someone has already sent, sir.
Oh,
Collaborate.
okay. That's great. Okay. Anything else? If not, then we call it a day. Then thank you, everyone. Yes, thank
Thank you
you.
everyone for joining. Thank you. Thank you, Vardhan.
Thank you, Varun. Great session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.